Hey everybody, welcome to quarantine lesson number 9 about environmental changes. If we were at school, I would tell you how much I don't like this topic. It is meaningful, unlike moon phases, but it's really hard to answer questions correctly about it on the STAR test. On the STAR test, they would give you some kind of question like, there's deer in the forest, there's a flood, how does the flood affect the deer population? I can't accurately answer that question without knowing more about the flood. There's a really big difference between a 2-inch flood that lasts 3 days and a 4-foot flood that's going to last a month and a half. In one of those, the deer walk away and come back. In the other one, they all die. But good news for you, you don't have a STAR test. You don't have to imagine what the STAR test writers mean when they say flood, because you don't have to take one. I'm going to be the one writing your questions, and I'm going to be more detailed than they are. If you're following along your notebook, the title is Environmental Changes, and it's on page 72 of your notebook. Your essential question are what are the types of changes that can affect populations? So we spent a whole bunch of time talking about ecosystems, relationships in ecosystems, how organisms interact, their habitats, their trophic levels, and a whole bunch of stuff. So now we're moving out of those specifics about the ecosystem right now, and we're going to talk about the ecosystem over time. For our purposes, we're going to define an environmental change as a disturbance that can alter plant and animal communities in an ecosystem. Now I'm saying plant and animal because it's easier for you to imagine and think about terrestrial ecosystems than marine or freshwater ecosystems. We have both natural changes and man-made changes. I split natural changes up into 2 different types, slow changes and quick changes. Now there's no real definition of what's slow and quick, which is another problem with this topic. There's no official definition of anything less than 100 years is quick and anything more than 100 years is slow. So there's a lot of interpretation when it comes to this. Yet another good reason why I'm happy we're not taking the STAR test, because this particular topic is just so vague. Anyway, our natural changes. We have some slow changes and quick changes. A couple examples of some slow changes would be things like climate change and ecological succession. So go back to 7th grade when you talked about succession and you had the volcano erupts, and so now there's lava, and then the little lichens grow, and then the grass grows, and the bushes grow, and the trees grow, and it goes back to a forest, 200 years later. You also have some quick changes, and those would all basically be your natural disasters. So anything that you can think of weather related would be, floods, hurricanes, volcanoes, earthquakes, forest fires, blizzards, sinkholes, all of that kind of stuff would be something that happens fairly quick in the history of the world. People, of course, always affect the environment, and usually we affect it in a fairly bad way, though we do help out every now and then with some conservation efforts. So some slow things that people do, generally speaking, has to do with an increase in population. So as our human population increases, there's more urbanization, cities are expanding, we need more places to put these people, we are going to tear down more grasslands in order to farm more, that's going to produce more climate change. So most of the human activities that are affecting environments are generally just the fact that we're here. We of course also have quick impacts on ecosystems, and so that would be stuff like us building things. We're going to bulldoze this forest to make room for a new neighborhood. Again, when I'm talking about short-term change and long-term change, there's no time, official time that says this is short and this is long. So it's all relative, and it's all just kind of what you think. So short-term changes, I usually define them as weather related. So that would be stuff like snowstorms, thunderstorms, floods, blizzards, tornadoes, hurricanes, and organisms usually recover fairly quickly in their ecosystem. Fairly quickly is relative, so it could be a few weeks, it could be a couple years. In contrast, a long-term change will have more long-term impacts on your ecosystems. So that would be stuff like climate change. Due to climate change, we also have ocean temperature increases, and those ocean temperature increases negatively affect coral reefs. That is long-term change. It's not really going to go away very easily, and it's been affecting ecosystems for the last 200 years. So when it comes to those things, there is not a whole lot of bouncing back by organisms. Either the organisms have adaptations that allow them to deal with and survive these changes, or they don't. And if they don't, they become extinct. Just remember, when it comes to adaptations, animals don't choose to have their adaptations. That's a word that we use a whole lot with humans, saying that you need to adapt to change, meaning you need to change what you're thinking and how you're doing. We all had to adapt to this online learning stuff, right? That's a different kind of adaptation than organisms have in ecosystems. When organisms have adaptations in ecosystems, they are either born with those small genetic variations that are going to make it an advantage, or they're not. If organisms don't have adaptations that allow them to deal with some of these long-term changes, then they end up becoming extinct. All right, we're going to do a tiny little at-home lab. You're going to need to write down a couple of things. Either you have to be really good and remember, or you should jot down. I'm going to need you to jot down 2 letters, and I'm going to need you to tell me what your final population is. You have a population of eastern cottontail rabbits, and there one is in the little picture. Look how cute it is with its beady little rodent eyes. So there are 20 rabbits in this grassland where we live. We're going to go through a couple years in the life of these rabbits and their ecosystems. And so you need to recalculate the population of your rabbits with each year. So year 1 comes around. I need you to pick A, B, or C. I need you to remember which one you pick. So that's what I mean by jot it down or write it down somewhere or make a note of it, so that when I ask you on the quiz, you can tell me whether you chose A, B, or C. If you chose A, there was a wildfire in your habitat and 50% of your population dies. If you chose B, there is a housing development and 25% of your population dies. If you chose C, there has been a major flood, 75% of your population dies or leaves and doesn't come back. So take your initial population of 20, and you either need to decrease it by 50%, 25%, or 75%. Once again, I need you to choose A, B, or C, and remember which one you choose for year 2 for A, B, or C. Now remember, nobody has 20 rabbits anymore. If you choose A, congratulations, there's a good growing season, there is an abundance of food, and your population doubles. If you chose B, I guess congratulations, your predators are killed, your population doubles. If you chose C, local conservationists work to improve your habitat and your population increases by 25%. Make sure you make a note of your final population of your rabbits. It's going to be on your quiz. And by the way, I left this on there. Most of you know I keep my PowerPoints from year to year, and I just change some stuff as we go. This was last year's instructions to write in your planner. And I think it's pretty good instructions for today too. So make sure you relax and get some sleep tonight. All right, so that's it for environmental changes. If we were at school, we would have a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of activities we'd be doing. But hey, let's make it short and sweet for today. Not a whole lot. I hope you're all doing well. Make sure you go to Google Classroom so you can do your quiz. Stay safe.